All right, so sex and gender are two different things. Okay, our sex is biologically the parts that we are born with. All right, are you born with a penis or are you born with a vagina? Okay, that determining factor in sex. And there are a couple different factors that go into this. Genetics are obviously a key factor in terms of sex determination. So, we get one set of chromosomes from our mom and one set of chromosomes from our dad. Now, who knows which of the chromosomes do we get from our mom from the egg? Yeah, all right, you get the first chromosome in the pair from your mother. Okay, so the mother only has X chromosomes. All right, you get the second pair here from your father, and that pair is what determines your sex. Up until about 7 weeks, there is really no difference in embryos. And then at 7 weeks, the X or the Y start to manifest themselves, right? And that's what starts the different hormones, and you start developing ovaries, testicles, penis, vagina, all these things. So it's really that second chromosome that genetically determines the sex. And then physiologically, they're going along with that, the exposure to different hormones when you are in utero, being exposed to testosterone or estrogen or whatnot plays a big role as well. But this is all biological. And then obviously we talked about it last time. Okay, all right, puberty, primary and secondary sex characteristics, development, growth in penis, changes in penis and vagina, testicles, production of sperm and eggs, and then secondary facial hair, breasts, all of those things. Okay. Now, while sex is biological, gender is a very different thing. Okay? Gender is cultural, and it is gender is in the mind. All right, gender is in the mind, and gender is basically, in terms of your culture, what does it mean to be a boy? What does it mean to be a girl? And it's an interplay between your biology. Okay, so biology plays a role in it, right? Because you're already set up to be a certain sex, and then your experiences. And what this means is, you may hear some people say, like, there are only two genders, male and female. Well, that's not true, okay? Because gender is kind of whatever we make of it. And it makes it so that because is in our mind, it is a wide spectrum, right? A wide range, or we could call it it's gender is on a spectrum. It's not binary. It's not either, it's not either or. Okay, that's why, recently you've seen a lot of different terms referring to gender. There's what's called non-binary, there's cisgender, um, all of the different pronouns that people prefer to be for people to use. All right, all of that is dealing with the wide range, the gender spectrum. Now, a couple of things that go into our gender. The idea of what's called gender role. which are sort of the social expectations based on culture and whatnot, social expectations that are associated with each gender. Okay. And if we'll talk about gender right now in terms of, let's say that gender and sex are the same thing, that females who have the females who have female body parts are also their gender is female. Males that have male body parts, their gender is male. If we were talking about gender role, what would we say the role of women in the United States in the 1950s was? Sorry, Rory, you're breaking up. Yeah, the role of women in like the 1950s. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Sammer says housewives. Philly says they take care of the house. Yeah, and that fit into the idea of what is called that fit the gender schema for women, that women are supposed to be housewives. In the 1950s, they stayed home, they cooked, they took care of the house, they took care of the kids, they wore their like poodle skirts around and whatnot. Okay. And then what in terms of for a man in the 1950s, what was kind of the gender role? Okay. Take care of, all right, work a job. What else? All right. Be overtly masculine. Yep. Okay. Yeah, that was, it had high and tight haircuts and you got to be, just want to be tough, protect the family. Yeah. Sort of yeah. So, they went into marketing jobs. Women were expected to be if they had a job, all right, they were teachers, and guys worked in sales and whatnot. Have these gender roles or these ideas about gender have they changed since the 1950s or 60s or 70s in the United States? Yes. Okay. Are you saying not in the United States? Huh? You say the gender roles have changed in this side of the U.S. Do you think they haven't changed out in California? Oh, okay, yeah. All right, yeah. They gender roles have changed. Okay, it's not only acceptable, it's expected that women are going to have jobs and whatnot. So and all that kind of changes as society changes. Now, going along with this, okay, not only do we have is their gender role, what is expected to do, or whatever your gender is, there's what is called gender identity. Gender identity is your own personal belief about yourself and your gender. All right. What does it mean to you to be male or female or cisgender or non binary or any of those things? And do you even identify with with whatever gender is associated with your sex? Okay. So gender identity is just and all of us have different ideas about gender identity. All right. Somebody in here may think uh, like Mr. Hook's a teacher, like he must be wussy, all right, because that's a woman's job. whatnot. And then, so your gender identity about maybe being male is different than mine would be. Um, a lot of this is learned through what is called social learning theory, which is Albert Bandura, which basically says that essentially our gender identity is built through observation of others and reward or punishment. So if you tell, a 5-year-old boy, like, big boys don't cry, all right, part of their identity as a male goes into being tough. All right, does that make sense? But we also get instances where what does it mean to be transgender? Anybody know? Exactly. Yep. Okay. People who are transgender may have been born a female, so they're assigned their gender of female at birth, but then as they get older, they realize that their gender identity is different than the one that they were assigned at birth. Okay, so gender, as we said, is very fluid. Then there's also what is called androgyny. Anybody know what androgyny is? Yeah. Okay. When you're sort of people who are androgynous are kind of, we could call it like, they're like relatively like ambiguous or gender neutral. So, for instance, anybody know who this is? That is, yes, it's David Bowie. Okay, David Bowie was a male, all right, but he was considered to be very androgynous, and you can kind of see he has features of male and female. He kind of falls in the middle. All right. So people with that kind of, they're kind of just in both. But it can also be like somebody, if you have like a woman who is working in a job that is primarily male, like a woman working construction, right? That would be considered androgynous as well because they kind of they have both sides of it. Okay. Anybody got any questions about that? Okay. Now, sexual orientation. And some of the stuff on here might trigger some of you all if you don't have certain beliefs, but I'm just going to say, all right, this is all this is backed up by psychological and scientific research. Sexual orientation is obviously the whichever sex we are attracted to, or whichever gender we are attracted to. Most prevalent obviously are heterosexual, which is being attracted to somebody of the opposite sex, and then homosexual being attracted to people of the same sex. There's also bisexual, which is being attracted to both. Um, what they have found is that about 3 to 4% of men and 2% of women in the United States and Europe identify as exclusively homosexual. Okay, meaning they identify as a man only liking a man or a woman only liking women. Um, they have found that even in cultures that are not accepting of homosexuality, like Nigeria is considered to be one of the least accepting, these numbers stay the same. That about really across the world, It's about 3 to 4% of men and about 2% of women, whether it is a culture that is accepting of homosexuality or a culture that is not. Now, obviously, our views on sexual orientation and the acceptance of homosexuality in the United States has changed a lot, even in the past 10 years or so. You know, it's wild to think that I can't remember which year it was, but when did Barack Obama make same-sex marriage legal? I can't remember. But it wasn't that long ago that same-sex marriage was illegal. It is legal now in the United States, and nobody even bats an eye about it. Where 10 years ago, it was a big, like, political topic. All right, so our views on this have changed a lot in the past couple of years. Up until in the 1950s, in the original DSM, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, which is used to diagnose mental disorders, homosexuality was classified as a mental disorder. Okay, it is obviously not. Now, one of the most important things here to know and to remember is sexual orientation is not chosen. Anybody in here remember the day where your parents sat you down and said, all right, time to pick if you're going to be gay or straight? No, nobody in here remembers that because it didn't happen. Sexual orientation is not chosen, nor is it changeable. And it shouldn't be, because, you know, there are those, there's like conversion therapy. They've tried to convert gay people to be straight through a lot of different methods, lobotomies, pairing nausea with looking at erotic photos. And so hoping that whenever they see an erotic photo, somebody of the same sex, they feel sick. Spiritual intervention, the phrase like praying the gay away comes from that. Okay, and all of that sort of stuff propagates the idea that homosexuality is a bad thing that you shouldn't have, which is not true. Okay, it's just a different preference, and it is not a choice. All right, so got a couple questions here on environmental impact on sexual orientation. Is homosexuality linked to a child's problematic relationship with parents? Yes or no? Just put it in the chat, guys. Well, interesting. This class has somewhat conservative views on this. No, okay, it is not linked to any relationship with the parents. Okay, how a parent and a child interact does not affect sexuality. Does a boy playing with dolls at a young age make them more likely to be gay? Man, we have a lot of dentist appointments today. Okay, hold on one sec. All right. No, it does not. Okay, it does not. Does having two dads make you more likely to be gay? Absolutely not. Okay, there's people who are like, well, gay couples shouldn't be able to adopt a baby because what if they're gay? What if the baby turns out gay? Well, what if? Who gives a shit? Like, it's fine. Okay, but there's no correlation between having gay parents and the child being gay. And does having a homosexual experience at a young age make you more likely to be homosexual, such as being molested by someone um, of the same sex? Some people in here are not learning from the questioning pattern. All right. No, it does not. There's no evidence for this. So, taken from this, can we say, does environment, meaning the environment that you do up, that you grow up in, does the environment impact your sexuality? No, does not. No evidence whatsoever. And you can disagree, but I'm just telling you that's the research. All right, there appears to be no environmental impact. All right. Now, what they do have evidence of is biology. Okay. All right. That there, guys. What the hell are you all talking about on the chat? Okay, because I can't. All right. There is evidence of a biological basis for sexuality, for sexual orientation. They see in animals, they see same-sex attraction or same-sex sex. Now they don't necessarily, they're probably not doing it as like, it's not necessarily like this is a gay lion, all right? But animals they find that even in the animal kingdom there are animals that go for animals of the same sex. It's that episode of Parks and Rec with the gay penguins. They have found that there's differences in brain structure between heterosexual men and homosexual men. A neurologist in the 1990s named Simon LeVay, who was actually gay, did a blind study of, meaning he didn't know, of deceased people's brains who were either gay or straight, but he didn't know which one was which. And what he ended up finding was in the hypothalamus, in heterosexual men, there was a nucleus that had a larger cluster of cells in it than in homosexual men and women. And they don't believe that this is the sexual orientation part of the brain, all right, but they do believe that this is a part of the brain that plays a role in sexual behavior, meaning what we get reward from. And so they have found differences in brain structure. Genetics. Identical twins have a higher rate of shared orientation, all right, than siblings, meaning if one identical twin is gay, there's a higher than normal chance that the other identical twin will be gay. So there does seem to be a genetic component there, but it can't be all genetic. Why can't that be all genetic? Because it wouldn't reproduce. No, I don't know what that. If one identical twin is gay and one identical twin is not, or the chances of identical twins both being gay go up, but it's not 100%. Right? If it was 100, if sexuality was 100% genetic, then with identical twins, what would you have 100% of the time? How much? This is not a hard question. How much? Yeah, same orientation. How much genetics do identical twins share? 100%. So if it was just a gene, if there was just a gay gene, then You'd have 100% identical twins would both would be either straight or both would be gay. One of the other things that they found is that it seems to come from the mother's side. So it comes from that first, if there's some genetic component here, that first X chromosome. And what they have seen is that when you have a gay male, especially, all right, the research is not quite as clear for lesbians, but when you have a gay male, there tend to be more gay males on the mother's side of the family than on the father's side of the family. And then prenatal influences. All right. Even identical twins are exposed to different hormones in utero. And so that exposure, so when we talk about it in nature versus nurture, there is a nurture factor, but it's before birth, right? Because this is an environmental factor, but it's a prenatal environment. It's nothing like, you were bullied, so now you're gay. All right. And then one of the most interesting things that they found is it's called the older brother effect, which is the more older brothers you have, all right, if you are a male, the more older brothers you have, the higher the chance of you being gay is. All right, it goes up by about 1/3 for every older brother that you had. Normally, you have about a 2% chance of being gay, right? And then for every older brother, it goes up by about 1/3. Okay, which is interesting. They think it's because males change the males change like the chemical balance in a woman because it's different genetics in a male. So they think that the woman starts producing different antibodies that maybe influence the genes or whatnot in a little bit more of like a feminizing manner. Okay. All right. So are there any questions about that? Okay.